His teacher never called on him until the day she decided to humiliate him in front of everyone. But when he started playing, the look on her face said it all. She never saw it coming. Malik Johnson sat near the far window, gently tapping the end of his pencil against the corner of his notebook, not out of nervousness but out of habit. Something his grandma always told him made people think he was distracted. But it helped him concentrate. The classroom at Roosevelt Middle School in Memphis, Tennessee, buzzed with low conversations as students waited for the bell, but Malik kept his eyes on the assignment sheet in front of him. He liked being ahead. At the front of the room, Ms. Rachel Langford flipped through her lesson plans. She'd been teaching 6th grade longer than most students had been alive and had a reputation for being firm but supposedly fair, though only the kids she liked really believed that. Malik had never made her list. It wasn't blatant. She didn't yell or say cruel things. She just acted like he wasn't there. When he raised his hand, it almost never got noticed. When he gave the right answer, she brushed past it. When he made a rare mistake, she paused long enough for the whole class to notice. Malik caught on. So did a few kids around him. "Man, she looks right through you," muttered Jordan Ellis, his seat partner, one morning. "You got that ghost mode on, or what?" Malik had only chuckled and kept writing. "Maybe I do." But today felt different. Ms. Langford kept glancing his way, not with her usual disinterest, but with something that felt like she was waiting for something. The lesson started out normal, this time covering a section on Reconstruction after the Civil War. Malik scribbled notes in the margins, expecting to be ignored again. Then she broke the routine. "Malik," she called out, her tone crisp and clear. "Can you handle this one?" Heads turned. Malik looked up. She had never picked him before. He sat up, read the slide, and responded, "Sherman's march was designed to destroy supply lines and crush Southern morale." She paused. "Correct." She didn't say much more, but something had shifted. Jordan gave him a curious glance. Nothing else unusual happened until the final bell. As students began zipping up backpacks and filing out, Ms. Langford spoke again. "Malik, stay for a second." A few kids slowed down, pretending to fumble with their folders to eavesdrop. Malik packed up slowly, walking up to her desk. She folded her hands, almost too neatly. "I heard you talking last week," she began, "about your grandfather." Malik raised an eyebrow. "Yeah? What about him?" "You mentioned he played music." There was something careful and tight in her smile. "You said piano, right?" "Yeah, jazz, since forever." She gave a tiny nod, something like amusement flickering in her eyes. "So it runs in the family." He stayed quiet. "You ever try it yourself?" "A bit." "Good," she said, tone light, but with something underneath. "Tomorrow, I want you to show us." He blinked. "What?" She nodded toward the old upright piano in the back corner, covered in dust and faded stickers. "That one. Play something for the class." He stared at her, unsure what kind of game this was. By the door, a few kids paused, watching. "Why?" he asked. Her head tilted slightly, like the question itself was amusing. "Why not?" "You said you learned from your grandfather. Let's see what you've got." Elijah knew that tone. It wasn't curiosity, it wasn't encouragement, it was a setup. But he wasn't about to back down. Malik recognized that tone too well. It wasn't interest, it wasn't support. It was a quiet dare wrapped in fake politeness. He wasn't planning to give her the satisfaction. That night, sleep never came. He stared at the ceiling in the dark, going over every word Ms. Langford had said, over and over, like a loop he couldn't shut off. This wasn't an invitation, it was a trap. She wanted him to falter, to confirm whatever bias she had already built about who he was and what he couldn't do. But what she didn't realize was that the story she thought she knew only scratched the surface. When Malik stepped into the classroom the next morning, the air felt thicker. Word had gotten around. He could feel it in the way the conversations dipped when he passed. "You really gonna play today?" asked Xavier Boyd, smirking from across the room, his voice just loud enough. Malik didn't respond. "Didn't know you were some piano genius," Jordan mumbled next to him. "Guess there's a lot people don't know," Malik replied quietly, eyes locked on the blank page in front of him. Ms. Langford walked in with her usual stiff energy, placing her folder on the desk like it was a grand performance. She barely acknowledged the class before beginning the lesson, though her gaze flicked toward Malik more than once. The first part of the morning crawled by. He couldn't recall a single sentence she said. All he could think about was that piano, those chipped keys, and what would happen when she finally called his name. And then, right before second bell, she closed her book slowly and glanced at the clock. "Looks like we have a few minutes," she said too casually. "Malik, the floor is yours." Instantly, the energy shifted. Backpacks stopped zipping. Conversations froze. He didn't move right away. He could feel the room tilting in his direction, every stare like a spotlight. But his heart wasn't racing. It beat calm and measured. Then he stood. A few kids chuckled under their breath, expecting a disaster, probably hoping for one. Someone muttered something low and smug, but Malik didn't flinch. He already knew what they were thinking. Ms. Langford folded her hands. "Play whatever you feel comfortable with." He approached the upright in the back, worn from years of neglect, its brown finish scratched and faded. He pressed a key lightly, flat. The piano wasn't in great shape. That didn't matter. He sat, adjusted the bench slightly, and rested his hands on the keys. The soundboard was dry, the hammers probably stiff, but it would do. Behind him, the class fell silent. Not a whisper, not a shuffle. Even Miss Langford, who always carried herself like she had the answer to every question, leaned back just a little. Malik inhaled. He wasn't doing this to impress anyone anymore. He was doing it for someone who believed in him long before anyone else did. And then he played. The opening chords floated into the room, slow and low, a blues riff built from memory, something his grandfather used to play while smoking on the porch during long Mississippi evenings. Malik's fingers moved with quiet precision, blending rhythm with soul, his left hand steady as a clock while his right sketched out a melody that seemed to reach beyond the room. The smirks vanished. Even the kids who normally joked through everything leaned in. No one had expected this. Ms. Langford's expression cracked just slightly, less control, more surprise. She hadn't planned for this. Malik didn't stop to study their faces. He played on, eyes half closed, locked into the sound, into the feeling, into every lesson his grandfather ever passed down. He wasn't just hitting notes. He was telling a story, one chord at a time. Then, right when they thought they had figured him out, he pushed further. He slipped into a more complex pattern, a run his grandfather made him practice for weeks until it stopped being a struggle and became second nature, something that now poured from his hands without hesitation. A deep, rolling bass line pulsed beneath a soaring melody, notes colliding and resolving in perfect harmony. The longer he played, the heavier the silence became. Each chord Malik struck seemed to anchor the room tighter, the air thick with something no one could name, but everyone could feel. There wasn't a sound, just music that wrapped itself around every corner of the classroom like it had always belonged there. Even the usual chatterboxes fell quiet. Jordan, usually all jokes, leaned forward, jaw slack. Xavier, who'd tossed out a smug comment earlier, sat with his arms folded, no longer looking so confident. Some students exchanged glances, expressions shifting from surprise to something closer to awe. And then the moment peaked. Malik's hands crashed into the final section with purpose, layering chords that boomed with truth. He pushed the run, pouring into the keys everything he had never been allowed to say, and then it stopped. The last note rang like a memory, hanging in the still air. Malik let his fingers rest, chest rising slowly, not from fear, but from release. Nobody moved. Not a single desk creaked, not a single cough or shuffle. Then one clap broke through, from the back, then another, and within seconds, the entire class was applauding. Jordan let out a sharp, amazed whistle. Xavier shook his head slowly. "Didn't know he had that in him," he muttered. Malik stayed seated, not smiling, not looking around for validation. He didn't need to. The sound of clapping echoed through the room, But the one person not joining in was Miss Langford. She stood near her desk, arms crossed so tightly her knuckles had gone pale, lips pressed thin. Her face didn't give much away. The class still buzzed with quiet excitement, but her silence cut through it. Malik stayed still, eyes focused ahead. Then finally, she spoke. "Well," she said in a clipped tone, "that wasn't what I expected." The noise died down as quickly as it had started. A few students exchanged glances again, but now there was tension where there had been celebration. She looked straight at Malik. "Where did you learn to play like that?" "My grandfather," he answered without blinking. Her face twitched. Maybe it was recognition, maybe guilt, but whatever it was vanished fast. She shifted her weight, tapped her desk once, and faced the class. "All right, let's get back to the lesson." But no one reached for their books. Malik looked around. Jordan was still turned in his seat, watching him like he was seeing him for the first time. In the back, Maya rolled her eyes, arms crossed. "That's it?" she mumbled. Ms. Langford's head snapped around. "Excuse me?" Maya didn't flinch. "He just played like something out of a movie, and we're just supposed to act like it didn't happen?" A few heads nodded slowly. Ms. Langford's jaw tightened. "This is a classroom, not a performance hall." Malik sat taller. "You didn't think I could play," he said quietly, firmly. Her eyes snapped to his again, narrowing. "That's why you picked me. You wanted me to fail." The room filled with low murmurs. Students weren't laughing anymore. They were listening. Miss Thornton's fingers curled slightly against the edge of her desk. Her voice dropped an octave. "That's enough, Malik." But he didn't flinch. "You wouldn't have asked Jordan to play," he said, motioning toward his friend. "Or Maya, or Xavier. You picked me because you expected me to fail." The entire classroom held still, like the air had gone thick. Ms. Langford's jaw shifted ever so slightly. "You're crossing a line," she warned. "I don't think I am," Malik replied, calm but firm. She straightened her back, eyes narrowing. "Sit down." But for the first time all semester, he didn't. He turned, slowly scanning the faces around him. The classmates who used to pretend he wasn't there, who snickered when he spoke, who assumed they already knew who he was, and now they weren't so sure. One breath, then another, and he made his way back to his seat. Every step felt like it echoed. He sat down, steady, while Tyler gave him a subtle nod, the kind that says, "I see you." Maya hadn't looked away from Ms. Langford, arms folded, waiting, but Ms. Langford had already looked down again, pretending to review her lesson notes. "Let's move on," she said flatly. But the room didn't reset the way she expected. It hung there, charged. Whispers stirred. The moment had cracked something, and no amount of page-turning could cover it up. Then Xavier leaned back, arms crossed. "Weird how we're just pretending nothing happened," he said. Ms. Langford's head jerked up. "Excuse me?" "You made him perform like it was some big deal," Xavier replied. "But now you won't even talk about it." A few students murmured agreement. Her grip on her book tightened. "That's enough." But her control had thinned. It was there, barely, but fragile, like glass under pressure. The rest of class dragged. Students watched the clock more than the board. When the bell finally rang, the room burst into motion, backpacks slung, chairs scraped, voices hushed but fast. Malik grabbed his things, heading toward the door. But then, "Malik," she said. He turned. For a second, her expression wavered, like she wanted to say something honest. But instead, her tone stiffened. "You understand, this is still my classroom." Malik paused, looked her straight in the eye, and said quietly, "I know." Then he left. In the hallway, Jordan jogged up beside him, breathless. "Bro, what just happened in there?" Malik half smiled. "No idea." Jordan laughed, bumping his shoulder. "You gonna play again or what?" Malik thought of the piano, the weight of the music, the silence that followed. He nodded. "Yeah, I think I will." Because today, for the first time, he hadn't just played. He had made them all listen. As he walked home down Ashford Lane, shadows stretching behind him in the gold of late afternoon. He felt something new, like the air itself was lighter, and maybe so was he. The weight he had been carrying since yesterday, the tension, the doubt, was gone. As he walked through his neighborhood, the air felt different, lighter, easier to breathe. He stopped by the corner store like he always did, and Mr. Henson, the owner with silver hair and tired eyes, looked at him with a little grin. "You've got that look like something big just happened." Elijah paused before nodding. Maybe it did. By the time he got home, the smell of crispy catfish and warm cornbread floated through the air. His mom stood at the stove, humming as she flipped the last piece in the pan. "You're late," she said without turning. Elijah set his backpack by the wall and dropped into the chair at the kitchen table. "Yeah, it was a long one." She glanced back. Long good or long bad? He thought about how the class had gone quiet, how the music had filled every corner of the room, how Miss Thornton's stare had cracked for just a second, and how the others finally looked at him like he wasn't invisible. "Good," he said after a pause. "Real good." She turned off the heat and wiped her hands, then sat across from him. "Want to talk about it?" He nodded, and for the next few minutes, he told her everything. She didn't cut in once, just listened, her eyes shifting from concerned to proud to quietly reflective. When he finished, she took a breath and said, "Sounds like you made her squirm a bit." "I think I did," he admitted. She studied him. "And how does that sit with you?" Elijah didn't need time to answer. Like it needed to happen. She reached across the table and gently squeezed his hand. "Good." The following day the school looked the same, but something under the surface had changed. Miss Thornton taught like always, her voice steady, her posture upright, but the vibe wasn't the same. She didn't hold the same grip on the room. And Elijah? He didn't feel small anymore. At lunch, a few students he barely knew slid up to his table. "Yo, that piano stuff yesterday?" Madison said, setting down her tray. "That was nuts. How long you been doing that?" "Since I was 5. He said casually. Tyler let out a low whistle. "Man, and you just kept that hidden?" Elijah smiled. Some things don't need to be loud until they need to be heard. Across the cafeteria, Miss Thornton passed with her lunch tray. Their eyes met for a second, then she looked away first. Elijah just kept eating. He didn't need to say anything more. Some lessons don't come from textbooks. Sometimes a single moment rewrites how people see you and themselves. She had spent all year looking through him. In 5 minutes he made sure that would never happen again. Maybe she wouldn't admit it. Maybe she wouldn't even realize how deeply she'd misjudged him. But that didn't matter anymore, because now Elijah knew something she didn't. When they doubt you, when they expect you to stay quiet, let your gift speak, loud enough to leave them speechless. Because once they hear you, they can't unhear it. And once they see you, really see you, they never forget.